I know this one still stings. You watched it happen in real time and there was no escaping it. Seattle walked into Levi's Stadium, took over the building, and walked out as Super Bowl champions. That's not just a loss somewhere on a neutral field. That's a statement planted right in the middle of the 49ers' home. And if you're feeling frustrated, embarrassed, or flat out angry about it, that reaction is completely justified. This wasn't just Seattle winning a title. This was Seattle becoming the standard in the NFC West, whether we like it or not. Right now, the Seahawks aren't chasing anyone. They're the hunted. Every team in the conference, especially the 49ers, is now measuring themselves against what Seattle just built and what they just proved on the biggest stage. And the uncomfortable truth is this: there was nothing fluky about their run. They didn't get hot for one game. They didn't survive on turnovers or luck. They lined up, dominated the trenches, protected the football, and imposed their will. That's why this offseason can't be about small tweaks or running it back and hoping things break differently. Everything the 49ers do from here on out has to be about closing the gap with Seattle. That's the mindset shift that has to happen immediately. This can't be an offseason where the front office talks itself into internal development and vibes. This is an offseason where you admit, honestly, that the rival just passed you. Seattle didn't just win a Super Bowl, they showed a blueprint for how to win right now in the NFC, and it starts with physicality, discipline, and a roster that knows exactly who it is. If you're the 49ers, that has to light a fire. If it doesn't, then that's a bigger problem than any single position group. And here's the part that should actually give you some hope. The gap isn't mystical, it's not unfixable. Seattle didn't win because they reinvented football. They won because they were better in areas that are very clearly identifiable. That means the path to catching them is visible. It's hard, but it's clear. And that's what we're going to walk through step by step, because this offseason is about one thing and one thing only: making sure this never happens again. Before we get into the specifics, I want to hear from you. Be honest in the comments. Watching Seattle celebrate in Levi's, was that the angriest you felt as a 49ers fan in the Shanahan era? Yes or no? And if you're locked in for this offseason and want daily, no BS coverage as the Niners try to chase down their biggest rival, make sure you subscribe and help push this channel toward 2,000 subscribers. That support matters more than you think. Now let's talk about where this gap really starts, because if the 49ers don't fix it up front, nothing else we discuss will matter. If there was one area where the difference between the 49ers and the Seahawks slapped you in the face, it was up front. Not at quarterback, not at wide receiver, in the trenches. And that's where this conversation has to get brutally honest, because until the 49ers fix the offensive line, nothing else they do this offseason is going to close the gap with Seattle. You saw it in Week 18, you saw it again in the playoff matchup, and then you watched the Seahawks do the same thing to New England on the biggest stage. This is not coincidence, this is identity. Seattle's defense is built to wreck games from the inside out. They don't need gimmicks, they don't need constant blitzing. They win because their front dominates, their linebackers clean everything up, and their secondary gets to play fast and aggressive behind it. When that front controls the line of scrimmage, the rest of the defense becomes suffocating. And that's exactly what happened every time the 49ers tried to play them. The run game went nowhere. The pocket collapsed, the offense stalled before it ever had a chance to breathe. Now flip that around and look at San Francisco. Over the last two matchups against Seattle, the 49ers didn't score a single touchdown. Not one. They barely sniffed the red zone. And when you go back and watch the tape, it wasn't about play calling. It wasn't about missed reads. It was about getting physically overwhelmed at the point of attack. The interior of the offensive line simply could not hold up, and Seattle knew it. They attacked it relentlessly because there was no reason not to. This is where hard decisions have to be made. Center cannot be treated like an afterthought anymore. Left guard can't be a developmental hope. If the 49ers are serious about chasing Seattle, those two spots have to be upgraded, period. You can't ask a quarterback to function when pressure is in his face immediately. You can't expect the run game to thrive when defenders are living in the backfield. And you definitely can't beat a defense like Seattle's when you're losing the physical battle before the ball even gets out. What makes this even more Frustrating is that Seattle showed exactly what the payoff looks like. They protected their quarterback, they ran the ball when it mattered. They didn't turn it over. That's not flashy. That's foundational football. And right now, that foundation is cracked for San Francisco. You can talk about skill players all you want, but none of it matters if the offensive line continues to get pushed around by elite fronts. So here's the question I want you to answer in the comments. If you could only fix one thing this offseason, would it be center or left guard? And be honest with yourself, because this is where games against Seattle are being decided. If you agree that fixing the offensive line has to be priority number one, hit the like button so this message is loud and clear. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. This offseason is going to be about accountability, upgrades, and closing the gap. And we're pushing hard toward 2,000 subscribers doing it together. Up next, we need to talk about how losing the battle up front completely erased the 49ers' identity and why getting back to running the ball is the only way to unlock this offense again. This is where the conversation goes deeper than just blocking and protection, because when the 49ers lost the ability to run the football, they lost who they are. For years, the run game has been the backbone of this offense. It's what makes everything else work. It's what turns play action into a weapon. It's what creates easy throws, explosive plays, and rhythm. And over the last 2 seasons, that identity has slowly slipped away, especially against elite defenses like Seattle's. The Seahawks have made this painfully clear. Their entire defensive philosophy is built around one simple truth. If you can't run the ball, they don't respect you. They'll sit in 2 high safety looks, take away explosives, and force you to string together perfect drives. And when you don't have a dominant run game, that becomes almost impossible. Kyle Shanahan himself has admitted it. If you can't run, you can't pull those safeties down. If the safeties stay deep, the field shrinks. And when the field shrinks, the offense suffocates. You saw it play out again and again. Against Seattle, the 49ers couldn't create any push up front. Runs were getting stuffed before they even had a chance. That meant no chunk gains, no momentum, and no reason for the defense to adjust. The result was an offense that looked predictable and stuck. Not because the scheme failed, but because the foundation underneath it collapsed. That same script showed up in the Super Bowl. New England couldn't run the ball either, and Seattle smothered them the exact same way. This is why blaming the scheme misses the point entirely. The system works when it's supported. It has worked across the league with different coaches and different rosters. What hasn't worked is asking that system to function behind an offensive line that's getting driven backward. When yards before contact disappear, everything else follows. Play action loses its bite. Passing lanes close faster. Defensive backs don't hesitate. And suddenly an offense that's supposed to be dynamic looks ordinary. Getting back to a dominant run game isn't about nostalgia. It's about survival in this division. Seattle has shown you the formula to beating them, and it starts with earning respect on the ground. Until the 49ers do that, they will continue to see the same defensive looks, the same stalled drives, and the same frustrating outcomes. This offseason has to be about restoring that physical edge, because without it, nothing else opens up. Let me ask you this straight up. Do you still believe this offense can be elite again if the 49ers fix the offensive line, yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you want this team to get back to dictating terms instead of reacting, make sure you're subscribed and hit the like button to show your support as we push toward 2,000 subscribers. Coming up next, there's another uncomfortable truth to address, because even if the line improves, this offense still has a problem that Seattle exploited in a big way: speed, explosiveness, and age. Even if the 49ers fix the offensive line and rediscover their run game, there's still a glaring issue that Seattle exposed without mercy. This offense has gotten old, slow, and predictable, and defenses know it. That's not a shot at the stars who've carried this team for years. It's just reality. Football doesn't wait for anyone. And right now, the 49ers are trying to win in a division that's getting younger, faster, and more aggressive, while leaning heavily on players who are past their athletic peak. When you watch those games against Seattle, what stood out wasn't just the lack of push up front, it was the lack of fear. The Seahawks were not scared of getting beat over the top. They weren't worried about someone blowing past them and flipping the field in one play. That allowed them to sit back, play disciplined coverage, and rally to everything underneath. And when a defense isn't afraid of your speed, they play faster. That's exactly what happened. The numbers and the tape both tell the same story. The 49ers are one of the oldest offenses in the league. Key pieces are on the wrong side of 30, and while those players can still be productive, what they don't do anymore is stress a defense vertically. There was no one who forced Seattle to adjust. Their safeties. No one who made them hesitate before crashing down. No one who made them think twice about how aggressively they could play. Compare that to what Seattle built. Their defense is long, violent, and athletic at every level. Their offense complements that with players who can punish you if you overcommit. That balance matters. Right now, the 49ers don't have it. You can't expect explosive plays when defenders are sitting comfortably in their spots, reading routes and closing windows without urgency. This doesn't mean blowing up the roster. It means injecting youth and speed where it's missing. It means finding players who can turn a 5-yard play into a 20-yard gain or take the top off a defense even if they only touch the ball a few times. Explosiveness changes math. It forces defenses to account for space differently, and until the 49ers get that back, they're going to keep seeing the same results against teams like Seattle. So here's the question I want you thinking about. Which offensive position needs an infusion of speed the most? Wide receiver or running back? Let me know in the comments. And if you agree that this offense needs to scare defenses again, hit the like button and make sure you're subscribed as we close in on 2,000 subscribers. There's one final piece to this puzzle that can't be ignored because roster issues don't exist in a vacuum. Up next, we need to talk about the front office and why catching Seattle starts above the field. Here's the hardest part of this entire conversation, because it goes beyond any single player or position group. Catching Seattle isn't just about fixing the offensive line or getting faster on offense. It starts at the very top. The Seahawks didn't stumble into this. They were built this way, deliberately, by a front office that has consistently made tough, forward-thinking decisions. And when you look at the division as a whole, that's where the 49ers are falling behind. John Schneider has now built multiple Super Bowl winners with different coaches, different quarterbacks, and completely different versions of the roster. That doesn't happen by accident. It happens because of discipline, timing, and a clear understanding of when to pay players and when to move on. Seattle hasn't been afraid to make unpopular decisions if it meant staying competitive long-term. Even when they reset, they never bottomed out. They stayed dangerous. And now they're on top again. When you compare that to San Francisco, this is where the concern sets in. The 49ers have handed out big contracts that made sense emotionally, but hurt them structurally. They've missed on too many draft picks. And those misses add up because when you don't hit in the draft, you lose depth, you lose flexibility, and you end up old and expensive. That's exactly where this roster is right now. Talented at the top, but thin underneath and vulnerable when injuries hit. This doesn't mean the 49ers are doomed. It means accountability has to increase. The margin for error is gone. Seattle and even other teams in the conference are being sharper, more efficient, and more ruthless in how they build. If the 49ers want to reclaim control of the division, the front office has to match that urgency. Tough calls can't be avoided anymore. Sentiment can't outweigh sustainability. The good news is the window isn't closed. There's still elite talent here. There's still a coach who knows how to win. But the path forward has to be smarter and more aggressive than it's been. The Seahawks just showed what happens when everything aligns. Now, it's on the 49ers to respond. So let me leave you with this. Do you believe the 49ers can catch Seattle with smarter roster decisions, or is the front office holding them back? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this is the debate that's going to define the entire offseason. And if you want honest daily coverage as every move gets dissected, make sure you're subscribed and help us reach 2,000 subscribers.